I'm Andy Schmuckler. This is the second little video talking about our decision to move to a retirement community. Even though we're doing very well and really love where we're living now, how that came about. And I talked in the previous one about having to come to terms with some fundamental realities about our being tethered to a dying animal. That aging and death are things that are you can run, but you can't hide. uh, anyway, something I struggle with. It's been hard for me to really believe that I'm just temporary, though I've known it all my life, of course. But I'm not stupid, but you can know things and not know things at the same time. I had thought about moving to a retirement community in pretty negative terms. It seemed like it's a surrender to an aspect of the human life cycle that I don't really like. So why do that any sooner than you need to? We got exposed to a whole lot of people who said, "Oh, we only wish we had done it sooner." So my wife was pushing toward sooner, and I was pushing toward let's push it as far into the future as we can. I felt some kind of confidence that there would come a time where I didn't fall off a cliff, but I had declined sufficiently to be able to make the decision to pull the cord at the last moment, escaping the rugged place we live now and gingerly walking down to some kind of protected life. So what happened was that, we started looking around. And out here, there is a place that we were ready to put refundable money down so we could sort of test out being part of that community. But it never, the image of the being part of that community never felt enlivening to me. And I thought about testing it because I had the right, if I decided to invest the effort, to give a little lecture series there without being a resident. Just sort of because they bring in people like you could say me. I've been a lecturer for more than 40 years, so it's not incredible to do that. And I imagined, based on everything that I could tell, that I was going to have trouble finding a lot of kindred spirits, that it just wasn't going to be dense with people with whom I could have meaningful conversations for more than 10 minutes and become friends. I never tested that. It was just an intuitive feeling that, without necessarily having to test it, just knowing the population from which their residents draw. Because I've been out here for over 30 years and I did talk radio here, as a political candidate for Congress out here, I kind of know what the wider culture is. And we haven't found what we subsequently now have found in another retirement community that draws out of a very different population. It's a place called Riderwood. It's just outside the Washington Beltway, in the direction of Baltimore, really just outside. And there's a different kind of a community as I experienced it. Of course, the people in both places make you feel well taken care of, as salespeople must do, and they were genuinely friendly people. So that felt good. But it also felt like they set it up so we got our 2 day live the life. We really got a chance to engage with a certain number of people, some of it planned and some of it just uh, by happenstance, and found that I think the density of people with whom you can have some kind of meaningful engagement is a lot larger than what it would have been out here. So if it weren't for that place and that experience, I'd still probably be holding out, delay as long as we can, take a little chance about it being 5 minutes too late. But we went in, and I came out of there feeling like I'd have to give up a lot that I value here. I mean, I look out here, I see that marvelous sugar maple and all the oaks, and we have almost an arboretum of different kinds of trees, and past them, the valley and the next highest ridge, Great North Mountain to the west. I will miss this. This land and I have formed a bond, but I've been a isolated figure out here in a whole lot of ways, particularly since I stopped doing hours of talk radio with a call-in audience. I send out messages in the form of op-eds, but I'm not engaged with the people around me to an extent that would be meaningful for me if it could happen. And I felt that it could, that there are enough kindred spirits that I would form friendships that mattered to me. And I thought about how being in that community, which consists of a lot of very interesting and capable people, how I might engage with them in order to help foster what I might value in the community, one of which is to find out ways in which I might be able to recapitulate using their technology, which I know they got technology, I don't know much about it, but maybe I could reconstitute in some way what I used to do as a talk radio host in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley and on an NPR station in New Mexico subsequently, trying to create meaningful conversations about questions that I would work to frame in such a way as to create a meaningful conversation. That maybe I could do that as a way, basically to introduce who I am. And I have a lot of yearning for people to see me for who I am. A way of making contact with people on terms that are important to me. So that's one thing that I feel that I could do. Also, when I lived in New Mexico, I taught a seminar on about watching movies for us to discuss, basically. And when the seminar was over, it was all adult education. People didn't want to stop. So what my wife April and I instituted was once a month we would have a movie group meeting. I would choose a movie that's worth discussing, have a potluck dinner together, and then we discuss it, sitting around in a circle, and we'll play a moderator's role just to make sure that we got all the ideas on the table, and didn't just go down the first step we take. And it worked rather well. I understand that even though we've been gone from Albuquerque for 16 years, at least recently that movie group was still going. It continued after we left and stopped being the hosts. So maybe that's something I can do. Maybe it's some way of getting people together to watch a movie and discuss it. Maybe I could do that. And And that would be a way of meeting in a place that allows for a meaningful sense of where somebody else is, who they are, and where they're coming from. In terms that are meaningful for me, to engage with people. I like the dance of conversation. And then there's that lecture series possibility. I think that I would that would be very important to me because that's really fundamental to my life's mission, which I'm painfully aware of how small my success has been, how considerable the failure has been to achieve. Um, that I would like to see if I could meet with people at the place where I have this integrative vision and present it in some kind of a lecture series. I've already laid it out on my website, betterhumanstory.org. I think I could readily develop a series of a handful of lectures that, if they could attract some people, might make meaningful contact. But that place seems to offer all those possibilities. I don't know in detail, but on that last one, I think I would wait until maybe I'd established who I am a little bit fuller in other ways, humanly, and in terms of fostering a good conversation of some kind. And that's how it looks to me. So I feel kind of like moving to that new life is not a surrender the way I had imagined it to be. It is actually the embrace of a new life. I said to my brother recently that if you could take away any problem about decline and mortality, it would still be a question worth asking whether, after all these years of operating in this life, I were to embrace a new set of possibilities and a new kind of living as a way of expanding the spirit in some way that wouldn't be entailed by continuing to live the life of essentially a blogger and speaker, and, op-ed writer. I'm not very adventuresome in some ways. If it ain't broke, don't fix it is a lot of how I relate to life. It's hard to get me to leave home. Do it, but you know, I like where I am. I got my comforts. I got my movies on my DVR, computer all set up. Everything's. Why would I want to go anyplace? Well, I'm guessing that I've got maybe 15 years left to live. If I'm 78, I think actuarially that not out of the question. I think that it's probably in better service to my spirit to challenge myself to create a different life. I'm going to still try to live this life, in the sense of make videos. And I'm planning still to write op-eds that I send to the newspapers out here in the district where I ran as a Democratic nominee for Congress back in 2012. And now I get a message out there every week to this very red part of Virginia. So I do intend to continue to do that, whether to this greater degree or a lesser degree. But this is throwing me into situation where I got to create something new. And I think that's probably good for me to have to do. Um, to the extent that changing and moving one's mental and emotional furniture is, in fact, rejuvenating of the spirit, and that maintaining the old, however rich it may have been, it has its limitations that are good to overcome. So we've decided that we're going to, with all deliberate motion, move in the direction of a new life there in the retirement community. I'm looking forward also to doing what I did on our day there, working up a sweat playing ping pong. I don't do that kind of thing here, but maybe I'll do that there. I think it was good for me. And there are studies that show that people who move into that kind of a life, embedded in a kind of a community, seem to have better health outcomes and longer longevity. I mean, I think there are some studies that show that. Maybe they're self-serving from the retirement community, but I found them credible. I think that they say that if you make that move, you add to your years to your life, which probably also is pretty indicative that you're adding quality of life to your life, or you wouldn't be living longer if you weren't relieving stresses and fulfilling oneself. I think happiness is good for one's health. I think that's pretty well understood. There are aspects of it that are challenging. Uh, and one of those is, well, I heard somebody say recently about rejecting that course. And everybody's so old. And I've got some feelings about old people too that I'm looking at and thinking that there's a more enlightened place to get to than I've been. Uh, I haven't held oldness in kind of esteem that perhaps is warranted. Um, and I'm looking at that, and I'll talk about that in the next recording. Uh, I'm not clear about exactly how I developed my feelings about aging. I think that overall, I'm a person that really focuses on a lot on how things should be. Um, I was a kid who didn't want the nature of the game to be degraded so that we couldn't compete at a high level. I'm not a person who would be oriented toward special ed. I would much prefer to teach the most gifted and talented. I know a lot of people who have more instant, open-hearted compassion for the disabled than I do. I also really value physical beauty in a human being. And in all those respects, aging looks like the loss of something. And I suppose it is. The youthful body is more attractive than the old body. The youthful body is more capable in some basic animal sense than the old body. I like to see bodies in a state of deterioration. When I see some old person walking along with the aid of a walker, I don't feel a human openness in the same way as I would somebody who's striding along toward me. there's a degree of prejudice there that I think there might be a way of working on. And I found myself when I was there um, trying to see the person, the human being, that's still in that aging body. I think that there's a line that people cross where maybe the person isn't there well enough to not be repelled. That's another ball. But up until one of the things I found was that if I overcame some of my dismissive, re- repelling, well, response to the agedness of a person, and found the uh, human richness that was in. I don't know what proportion of old people have richness, and I'll be interested to come to some judgment on that. I think that if people are using their years well, um, engaging with an old person um, should be a place where you find maybe more richness than maybe in a 50-year-old or a 30-year-old, that something has been built. And I'm going to go looking for that. I felt like I did a bit of that when I was there. And as I passed people in the hallway, I worked on not having my habitual response to the signs of aging. I think that I can manage, and I think that it's to my good to work on it. There's also, I think, a way of be called to come to terms with death. And if you think about you'll be living with death basically, and I haven't before. Why am I saying you? It's me that I'm concerned about. But thinking, yeah, this will bring it home. Life is already bringing some. But here, it's a community of 2,400 people, so you really have a lot of people to choose among for kindred spirits. And the average age is such and such, and the actuarial tables will tell you that a non-trivial proportion of the 2,400 will die every year. Just, statistics dictate that that's the probability. So that non-trivial proportion means that you're going to be seeing regular notice of, oh, yeah, I knew her or I knew him. And at a certain intervals, yeah, that was a friend of mine. So that is challenging. I'm not in a hurry to have to contend with that, but I think I can handle it. Even if a part of me still can't believe that we human beings die, which is the first video in this series. I know and I don't know that we are mortal creatures. I don't know where that don't knowing comes from on my part, but I've been struggling with it to recognize what's obviously true. Okay. Thank you for following this series. There may be more to come. I'll think about it. I'll be back if there's more to be said. I do think that these communities can have something to offer that is valuable in itself, and not just as a cushion to protect you from the possibilities that lie ahead. Okay, thank you.